The last 4 years or so, there's been a team every year in the Big Ten Conference that has surprised us, that has broken through, that's been in contention for a division title late in November. Who's it going to be in 2023? Who's going to surprise us all? Who's going to break out and prove the doubters wrong? Before we get to that, just a reminder to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Big Ten content all off-season long. Always crush that like button to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses. In 2019, it was Minnesota, right? PJ Fleck finally got the right formula together. Won 11 games at Minnesota. 11 games for the Golden Gophers. Yeah, that's breaking out, I'd say. In 2020, it was Northwestern. They gave Ohio State a run for their money in the COVID-shortened year of 2020. In 2021, Michigan State, right? Mel Tucker, in his first season back in 2020, went 2-5 with Sparty. In 2021, Kenneth Walker and the green and white of Michigan State turned it into an 11-2 season and a win in a New Year's Six bowl game. In 2022, it was Illinois. This had been a team that had been dormant for a while, but Brett Bielema turned it around brief early in his Illinois career and went 8-4 in the regular season. So who's it going to be this year? Who's it going to be in 2023? Well, if you break it down by division, it's really hard for me to say that it's going to come from the East because Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State are just so damn good right now. They are all college football playoff contenders. I almost remember back in the day before Penn State joined, used to call it the Big Two and the Little Eight, right? Ohio State and Michigan kind of at the top, and then you had kind of the rest of the conference. I see it that way in the Big Ten East right now. You got the Big Three and the Little Four. There's a big divide between Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State and the rest of the Big Ten East right now. It's just hard for me to imagine Maryland, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Indiana getting a win over Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State. That's really hard for me to imagine right now. So that's already 3 losses in the books for Maryland, for Indiana, for Rutgers, for Michigan State. So, and then you factor in, tripping up against a West Division team or tripping up against each other, obviously, those other 4 teams. It's just hard for me to imagine a team really surprising and really breaking out, much like Michigan State did in 2021. So then you got to go to the West. You got to go to the Big Ten West. And this is usually where a team breaks out because this is a more even division. You don't have to deal with the elite powers of the Big Ten Conference. As we sit here right now, you can't say to me that Wisconsin and Iowa can be a surprise team. Sure, they can take a step up. There's no doubt in my mind that the Hawkeyes and the Badgers, either one of them can win 10 games. But even though Wisconsin went 6-6 in the regular season last year, even though Iowa went 7-5 in the regular season last year, it is not a surprise. Look at what Wisconsin did, hiring one of the best coaching candidates in the country, bringing in an offensive coordinator that is all about putting together an explosive offense. You go and get one of the best group of 5 quarterbacks in the transfer portal. You already have one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. You add a lot to your wide receiver core. Do you want me to go on and on and on? Because I can go on and on and on about Wisconsin. It is not a surprise if they increase their win total by 3 games or 4 games this season. Same with Iowa. Right, they've added a quarterback with Big Ten championship experience. Been there, done that, protects the football. Right, you go out into the transfer portal, you get a kid like Seth Anderson, and you've got one of the very best defenses year in and year out. This year's going to be no different for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So you can't tell me Iowa jumping up to 9 wins, jumping up to 10 wins, is going to be a surprise. So you got to take out the Badgers, and you got to take out the Hawkeyes. Minnesota's schedule is just too tough right now. It's just too difficult. I think Minnesota's got a solid team. I think they got some good talent that they brought into the transfer portal, but they're losing too much on defense. Young quarterback. I know Ethan Kaliakmanis looked pretty good late in the season, but still a young quarterback. Teams focusing in on him and solely him in their defensive game plan. I just don't know. I think Minnesota might take a step back from that 8-win total, that 8-win barometer that they've been able to put together the last few seasons. I say Purdue taking step backs. Northwestern is Northwestern right now. So that leaves us with 2 teams. I cannot in good conscience sit here and say Nebraska, because we've seen it. I know this is a different coaching staff, but we've seen it year after year after year. Nebraska gets good talent into Lincoln. But I just can't. I think this is more going to be of a slow burn a little bit. I don't think this is going to be like Luke Fickell, where all this talent's going to come in here in year one and all of a sudden they're going to win 9 or 10 games. I just don't see it that way. They don't have, like Wisconsin already had the foundation laid. Wisconsin already had the culture. Nebraska's, you got to throw a lot of it in the trash and you got to build it back up. That's where Nebraska is right now. Do they have the talent to break through? Could Nebraska surprise, win 8 games, win 9 games? Sure they could. They have the talent on their roster. But, and there's always a but, I just don't trust Nebraska right now to really make that big of a jump. It's a successful season right now if Nebraska gets to bowl eligibility, if they get to 6 wins, if they get to 7 wins. So that leaves us with the University of Illinois. Wait, hold on, Ted. Hold the phone. How can they be a breakout team if they went 8-4 last year and they were last year's surprise and breakout team? Much like, and that kind of has to do with what I just said about Wisconsin, about Iowa, about, you can even say Nebraska. A lot of people are talking about other programs. I think a lot of people, the way they think of Illinois is, well, this team went 8-4. They kind of faltered down the stretch. It was a nice story for a while there, but then late in the season, they kind of faltered, and we saw Illinois be Illinois. And now, he's going to be in the top 10 of the draft, probably in Devin Witherspoon. You got Sidney Brown. You got their all-everything running back, Chase Brown, right? One of the best offensive players that Illinois has ever seen. You got so much of your team and so much of your production. Tommy DeVito, touchdown Tommy DeVito is leaving. There's so much leaving. How can they come back? I think a lot of people are expecting the orange and blue to take steps back. And I just don't think that's going to happen, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's start first on the offensive side of the football, because we're going to save the best for last. Let's start first on the offensive side of the ball. I firmly believe that Ole Miss transfer Luke Altmaier is a little bit better. I'm not saying he's a lot better, but I think there's more of a ceiling at quarterback with Luke Altmaier than there was Tommy DeVito. You knew he was going to be a one-and-done guy. His eligibility, he had already exhumed a lot of his eligibility, whereas I think you have a guy in Luke Altmaier, 4-star guy coming out of high school, I think was in a very close quarterback battle at Ole Miss last year, and I think this is a great opportunity because I don't think they're going to put a lot of pressure on Luke Altmaier, just like they didn't put a lot of pressure on Tommy DeVito last year. But I will say this. I believe this is going to be an Illinois team that's going to throw the football just a little bit more. You look at their wide receiving core coming back, and it's a pretty good receiving core for a team that was known as hard-nosed and physical last season. When you look at Isaiah Williams, when you look at Pat Bryant, and when you look at Casey Washington, all 3 of those guys combined for 1,474 yards and 7 touchdowns last season. This is a good plethora of talent to throw to. Like, this is a better receiving core than Iowa right now. It might be even a better receiving core than a team like Purdue. Like, this is a solid receiving core that Luke Altmaier is going to throw the football to. They're going to make plays. You look at the speed guy in Isaiah Williams out there. I raved about Pat Bryant during the season as it went on last year. This is a good receiving core, and I think that's the way their offense is going to shift. I will say this, spring transfer period, I'd like to see Illinois try to find a really good running back. You could stick with Josh McCray. You could stick with Reggie Love. Remember going into last year, we thought Chase Brown and Josh McCray was going to be a really good 1-2 punch. Josh McCray got injured, and he never really found his footing. Maybe he can be a number 1 guy. Maybe he can be one of the better running backs in the Big Ten Conference, or maybe they go out and find somebody. They got to figure out what they want to do with that. But, man, the defense is where it's at. A lot of people might say no Sidney Brown, okay? No Devin Witherspoon, right? There's a few other players. Kendall Smith, there's a few other players that are gone. Isaac Darkangelo, like there are good players that were on this team last year, big contributors that are gone, but man, there are some good players. There were some young players last year that really evolved as the season went on. Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph are going to be studs up front. That is going to be one of the best defensive line combinations. I've seen some Pro Football Focus stuff come out, and they are highly rated nationally. I'm not just talking about the Big Ten. I'm talking about nationally. Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph are going to be a dangerous tandem up front on that defensive line. And then you look at the linebackers in this front seven as well. You look at Seth Coleman. You look at Gabe Jacobs. You look at Tariq Barnes. Coleman had 45 tackles, 4.5 sacks last season. Jacobs, 36 tackles and 4 sacks as a freshman last season. You can expect, I think, a big jump with the entire spring, with the entire summer, with the entire fall camp. I think you're going to see him take a big-time step forward, and Tariq Barnes had 46 tackles last season. And then you look at Matthew Bailey back there. Big-time bowl game, right? When you have no Sidney Brown, when you have no Devin Witherspoon, he stepped up and had a really good bowl game. I think Aaron Henry is going to do great as the defensive coordinator. He's got a lot to work with. This is going to be a stout Illinois defense, and they have the schedule. Illinois has the schedule to be able to put together another 8-win season and possibly even another 9-win season if things bounce their way. They don't play Ohio State, they don't play Michigan, and they play Penn State the third game of the season at home. So you got a young quarterback in Drew Allar, gonna play Illinois. Who knows what can happen that early in the season, that early into Drew Allar's career at Penn State. They get Wisconsin at home. They get Nebraska at home. Their toughest road games at Maryland, at Minnesota, at Iowa. Like, you look up and down, if things gel together and this Illinois team stays healthy, and maybe they learn from last year's mistakes, right? Last year was a situation where Illinois hadn't been in this type of situation in a long, long time. They needed to learn how to be in these difficult situations, these must-win type of games, competing for championships. And now they've kind of learned, hopefully they've learned how to deal with that. And the guys that are returning are going to know what it takes to jump up to the next level, right? They're going to know what it takes. Like, if you look at it, this Illinois team should have at least been 9-3 last season. You've got to be ready to play each and every single week. I think the new players that they're bringing in, I think, are better. This is an Illinois team. You know, a Brett Bielema team ain't going to beat itself. You aren't going to have to worry about that. This is an Illinois team that will surprise some people because people are expecting them to take steps down. I want to hear what you guys think. Who is going to be the surprise team of 2023? Do you agree that it's going to be Illinois, or do you have somebody else in mind? Leave your thoughts on all things surprise and breakout teams in the Big Ten in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.